Welcome to another trivia video on Patreon. This is Tim in Tokyo.
And this is Paul in Hanover, New Hampshire, but really in my mind, I'm in Donkey Kong. Well, I guess yes. So I guess the is my signal that I'm ready for trivia.
Okay. Well, our topic this time is one-hit wonders of the 70s.
Mm.
But before we get to that, I got a couple of bits of old business to mention.
Okay.
So, first of all, in the 20th TV trivia video, I said that A&M Records was named after Herb Alpert and Chuck Mangione. Now, this
Hmm.
may have been another one of those things that someone told me wrong decades ago, or I misremembered and accepted as fact.
Mm.
Chris Kavanaugh messaged us and pointed out that the M in A&M refers to Jerry Moss, not Chuck Mangione.
Okay.
Mangione worked better in my mind because I know who he is, and he recorded on A&M.
Right.
Who knows who Jerry Moss is? He's just an exec. He's not a musician.
Right.
And I really knew nothing about him until I looked him up when I was writing this for the video.
Right. Right. He's the business end of the business partnership.
Right. So sorry about that. Yes, Alpert and Moss. Also, in our previous music trivia quiz, I mentioned that a predecessor band of The Sweet had been called Unit 4, but they abandoned that name because another band was using it. And we wondered what was so special about Unit 4 as a name.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I found out that it was a reference to a BBC radio show called Pick of the Pops, which was divided into 4 segments that they called units.
Mm.
According to the website desandmick.co.uk, quoting, the first part of the show, Unit 1, was given over to the newcomers, discs that had just come into the top 20. Unit 2 was made up of new releases that Alan and his producer, not sure who Alan is, believed could be future hits. Unit 3 was the LP slot, and the show concluded with Unit 4, a countdown of the top 10.
Ah.
So obviously, a band would want to be included in Unit 4. It'd be a sign of success and money. So
Right. So
that
my
they
now that
all
you've let
aspired to be in Unit 4.
right, right, yeah. I also want to. I feel like speculating that either they'd hoped that Unit Four, calling their band Unit Four, would send a subliminal message to the producers of that show, or B, it's a kind of rapper, I'm better than you are kind of taunt. When I'm in Unit Four, what unit are you in? That's interesting. That's really interesting. I still, I held on. I looked around and couldn't find any references to it, and then had to stop for a few minutes after we recorded. But my first impression was that it had something to do with a sci-fi story or a
Oh.
Doctor Who episode or something.
Where I found it was the Wikipedia page for the other Unit 4, the one that
Ah,
had a record released and that got on the charts.
interesting.
And that
Okay.
gave me a clue, enough information that I could search and find something more elsewhere.
Hmm.
Okay, so one hit wonders of the 70s. Okay. Which song was inspired by something shouted by an audience member at a concert by the act that subsequently recorded this song? A. You Light Up My Life by Debbie Boone. B. Play That Funky Music by Wild Cherry. C. All Right Now by Free. Or D. The Boys Are Back in Town by Thin Lizzy.
Play that funky music.
That's right. So,
Yeah,
did you know that previously, or
I think so. I mean,
mm,
and the song, even if I hadn't, the song is so palpably about a real
mm,
event, or at least a fictionalized version
mm-hmm.
of real event, kind of like Smoke on the Water. narrates a story. It's not
Yeah.
just a song about
Hmm.
how much I love you, baby.
Yeah. So I guess Wild Cherry was mainly a hard rock band. But at
Hmm.
one of their shows, someone yelled, "Play some funky music, white boy." And frontman Rob Parisi latched onto that and wrote the song that got to #1 in the US and the top 10 in 6 other countries.
Mm.
Incidentally, the band's name was inspired by a box of cough drops. Wild Cherry.
Oh, very funny. I could just imagine what's the name of the brothers, the Smith brothers, who appear on um, real hard rockers, clearly from
Yeah.
their hairstyles, appear on cough drop boxes. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm 1 for 1 so far.
Yeah. #2. In Dean Friedman's 1977 hit Ariel, the narrator meets the girl Ariel in Paramus Park, taking a collection for the Friends of BAI. What's BAI?
Oh,
A. Bricklayers Association International. B. Stands for something that's not family friendly. C. Radio station WBAI. Or D. He's spelling the name of Bai Williamson, a wrongly convicted man.
whew. I'm going to take a wild guess and go with Bai Williamson.
Nope, no such person. It was
Okay.
the radio station.
Oh, okay. And
Um,
was this an indie radio station?
Yeah, and in fact, it still exists. Here's a quote from the Straight Dope message board. User Ice Wolf writes, uh, "No, BAI is not some strange religious cult. BAI
That's what
are
I always thought as a kid.
BAI are the call letters of a nonprofit radio station in New York, WBAI FM. My brother once worked as a volunteer fundraiser, quote, collecting quarters," also a quote from the song, for the Listener Association, which called themselves the Friends of BAI. WBAI is still on the air playing strange stuff. And
Stay weird, WBAI.
I looked at their website, and now instead of having an organization called Friends of BAI, they suggest that you become a Bi Buddy or a
Okay,
BAI Buddy. I'm not sure how they say it, but
interesting. Very interesting. Boy, I loved that song back in the day. Yeah, there was something, quite scintillating about the lyric coming through our tiny little tinny speaker. She wore a peasant blouse with nothing underneath. It's like, wow, she wasn't wearing a t-shirt. What's happening here? I'm 9 years old. You're gonna have to fill me in on this.
#3. Frank Mills' piano instrumental Music Box Dancer became a hit because of an error by the record company. What was the mistake?
Huh.
A. They sent it to a pop station. B. They pressed the single after execs had decided not to do so. C. They pressed the wrong song onto the single. Or D. They promoted the B side of the single.
Hmm. Sent it to a pop station accidentally?
That's right.
Hmm.
Yeah, so Mills' album was originally released in his native Canada in 1974.
Wow.
In 78, he re signed with Polydor Records, and a single of two of the songs from that 1974 album was released. And Music Box Dancer was the B side.
Hmm.
And apparently, from what I can tell, the A side was the title track, the original title track of the album called "The Poet and I."
Hmm.
And they sent the single to easy listening stations in Canada, but accidentally also to Ottawa pop station CFRA. Wikipedia says the program director played the A side and could not figure out why it had been sent to his station. And I listened to it on YouTube, and I can very much understand why he would be confused.
Was it
It's
slow
Yeah, it's a
or?
slow, schmaltzy kind of song that you just can't imagine hearing on a pop station in pretty much any era.
Yeah, and for any of our younger listeners, if there are any who are younger than we are, I guess there are a couple. Back in those days, easy listening was sort of a beautiful music format, which often meant kind of slightly poppier versions of kind of bombastic, classical, like high romance, like high romantic with a capital R music, and so that stuff would never have made it on a pop station at the
Yeah.
in the mid '70s for sure.
Yeah, so he played the B side to see if the record label had been mistakenly marked. B side was Music Box Dancer, and he liked it, so he added it to his station's playlist. So Music Box Dancer premiered on CFRA's Top 30 chart on May 5th, 1978. By June 30th, it was the number one song on the station's playlist.
Hmm.
Music Box Dancer also began picking up play on other Canadian stations around this time and became a nationwide hit. And Mills' album went gold in Canada, after which several months later, Polydor released it in the U.S. I think it was still the same 1974 album, but they changed the title to Music Box Dancer for obvious
Hmm.
reasons.
Sure. So the album didn't get released until after Music Box Dancer had become a phenomenon in Canada.
Well, I mean, the re-release came, after that.
The re-release, yeah,
It
that's what
came
I
out in
meant.
the U.S. in like January '79.
Hmm. And it made it pretty high in the American Top 40. In fact, it was number one, wasn't it?
Um,
Briefly.
I'm not sure. I'm sure it was in the top 10. I didn't check the exact chart position.
Hmm. Hmm. It was an unusual song to hear on pop radio too, but it did fit
Hmm.
that format better than the beautiful music slash uh, easy listening format.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, number 4. Which of the following hits was actually a heavily edited version of a recording by the lead vocalist's previous band?
This stuff always fascinates me.
A. Sky High by Jigsaw. B. Wham Bam by Silver. C. The Rapper by the Jaggers. Or D. Black Betty by Ram Jam.
I don't know the middle two songs at all. I mean, I might have heard them and would
You
recognize
would
them.
recognize them if you heard them, I think. Wham Bam was used in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Okay,
Um,
which I watched recently again, but I don't remember that one. And what was the other song? Rapper?
yeah, The Rapper by the Jaggers, which
Hmm.
was Donnie Iris's old band.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We call him the Rapper. I think KIOA used to play it a lot in the 70s.
No kidding. It doesn't
Mm.
even ring the mildest of, soft tinkly bells for me.
Mm.
Um,
And Sky High by Jigsaw
oh,
and
sure.
Black Betty by
Sure.
Ram Jam.
Yes, those two songs are, etched deeply in the grooves of my head for some reason. Um, I guess I'll guess Sky High.
No, it was Black Betty.
It was Black Betty. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Well, that song sounds so tight to me. It sounds like a song, played by a band that might even be recording live, with like
mm.
no overdubs or editing of the tape or anything.
So, vocalist and guitarist Bill Bartlett had been in a group called Starstruck, which in 1973 had recorded their own arrangement of Black Betty, a song credited to Leadbelly from the 1930s.
Right. It
Although
does sound like a Lead Belly track.
it's probably his Leadbelly's arrangement of an African American work song.
Hmm.
Starstruck's version became a regional hit in the Cincinnati area. New York producers Jerry Kassenetz and Jeffrey Katz liked parts of the song, but they completely rearranged the song structure, this is 4 years later, and chopped out some parts. They then formed Ram Jam around Bartlett, and that band recorded the rest of the Ram Jam album.
Mm.
You can find Black Betty by Starstruck on YouTube. The parts that are left out of the Ram Jam recording are bluesier than you might expect. You know, what you ended up in the Ram Jam version sounds like a metal track.
Yeah, it's hard rock for sure.
But yeah, it's bluesier in the original version. The Starstruck version is 4 minutes and 25 seconds, but the Ram Jam version is 2 minutes shorter.
I can believe that.
The Ram Jam version repeats the opening guitar solo after the first verse. And from comparing, I gotta say that the second and third verses have been re-recorded, because in the Starstruck version, they're a little bit different, but also there's a different beat to those verses, so do 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 kind of feeling. So they seem to have re-recorded the second and third verse to more fit the tone of the first verse.
So do you think just the vocal was re-recorded, or just the drum track, or everything?
My guess is that they probably took the instrumental track of the first verse and he just sang over that to do the second and third verses.
I see. Okay.
Because apparently what these producers didn't like about the song was the bluesiness. So gotta get rid of that.
And I never would have suspected that song was basically, you know, a big pile of splices.
Yeah, me neither. I learned about this a few months ago from Ron Gerber on Crap from the Past from KFAI in Minneapolis.
Right. And since this was a Cincinnati regional hit, I'm imagining it being, you know, on constant rotation at WKRP in Cincinnati.
Okay, finally, number 5. Songs aren't always about what we think they're about. Which of the following songs is not about cheating on your romantic partner? A. Me and Mrs. Jones by Billy Paul. B. Torn Between Two Lovers by Mary McGregor. C. How Long by Ace. Or D. Heaven's Just a Sin Away by the Kendalls.
Me and Mrs. Jones.
No.
Really?
That definitely is about cheating on your romantic partner.
Okay. Heaven's Just a Sin Away?
No. How Long by Ace.
Really?
Yeah. So How Long was composed by lead singer Paul Carrack, who was...
Yes, imagine my surprise when I found out, you know, like 5 years ago that's Paul Carrack's voice, you know, long before he was part of Mike and the Mechanics or, you know, solo artist or anything else. And actually he played for Nick Lowe for a while too. He was in Nick Lowe's cowboy outfit when he was doing the cowboy outfit stuff.
And he was guest vocalist on the Squeeze song Tempted.
Right. I think he played keyboards for them on and off, maybe as a studio musician. Anyway, that was where I first heard of him. Right.
So it was composed by Paul Carrack, who was angry after discovering that Ace's bassist, Terry Tex Comer, had secretly been moonlighting with another band. The clumsily named Sutherland Brothers and Quiver. This is a British
really rolls
band.
Off the tongue.
Yeah. I guess I've heard of them before. I guess they had been two separate bands, the Sutherland Brothers and Quiver, and for some reason they merged and just kept both names.
Yeah, sounds like that's a marriage that was really going to last.
But yeah, so it was about cheating on your band rather than cheating on your romantic partner.
Interesting. Yeah, well, it's totally couched in the terms of, you know, I've been cheated on by my romantic partner. Ace was a kind of legendary pub band, or kind of like Nick Lowe and Rockpile. That was a legendary pub band as well before its various members became famous.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's what I dug up on one-hit wonders of the 70s.
That was great. I'm 2 for 5 that time, though. I was stumped.
Okay. Well, thanks for playing along, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Take care. I'll try to grow the rest of my brain back by then.